Welcome to the Blockdaemon podcast, where we today will discuss the highly anticipated Shapella hard fork on Ethereum. Today we have two experts from Blockdaemon and Metrika to answer some of the most compelling questions about Shapella. Joining us today is Torran Green, blockchain analytics engineer from Metrika, and Freddy Zwanzger, Ethereum ecosystem lead here at Blockdaemon. And we will discuss how this Ethereum upgrade impacts staking, withdrawals, and the resources both Metrika and Blockdaemon have developed for the community. So Torran, kicking off with yourself, what is the Shapella hard fork and why is it significant for Ethereum stakers?
Hi there, yeah, cheers. So the Shapella hard fork is, well, it's the combined name of the execution layer and consensus layer hard forks, Shanghai and Capella respectively. And the main development that this introduces is the ability for Ethereum stakers to withdraw their staked ETH for the first time. So this is different from being able to exit. They've always been able to exit, but so far after exiting or being slashed, they've sort of laid in a dormant state where they aren't able to withdraw their ETH. And Shapella completes this validator lifecycle and enables all of these exited and slashed validators to receive their remaining funds, and for active validators to start receiving partial withdrawals. It also enables them to set withdrawal addresses if they haven't done so already. There was originally quite a lot of FUD online and on Twitter. I was reading an article this morning of a similar theme about how this unlocks a lot of liquidity, and how like the early stakers are going to want to take profits now. The price of ETH is up 200% since they first locked up their ETH. But I think that it's the general consensus has moved away from this a bit now. People appreciate that if these early adopters were locking their ETH up for an undetermined length of time, they're not likely going to be selling at the first opportunity that they can. And from what we've seen, the demand for validating and staking ETH on Ethereum has never been higher. And if anything, Shapella will encourage more institutions to get into staking now that they know that there is a way that they can withdraw, and it's not just a one-way deal.
Great stuff, Torran. And Freddy, when will the Shapella hard fork happen and how can stakers prepare for it?
Right. So the good news is that unlike the merge, we're going to have now, due to the proof of stake, fixed block times. We have an exact date, actually. So it's going to be April 12th at around 10:30 UTC. I think it's like 10:27 UTC or something like that. So really, like if you've been sort of following the merge, excuse me, and having to wait and reschedule, the timing of the exact fork happening, you don't need to do that this time. So that's the good news. And April 12th, 10:27 UTC is the time where it's going to hit. The good news is that basically stakers don't need to do anything, particularly not Blockdaemon customers, because we're all already on the correct ETH1 credentials, basically. This would be a requirement to receive your rewards. But really the rewards are being pushed out automatically by the protocol. So that's, basically the only thing left to do basically for stakers is just to, follow along if they choose to. It should be really a non-event. Like the merge was much more complex and carried higher risk. This should be fairly normal as any other fork. So, but yeah, obviously monitoring the fork, if you're keen to do so, is a good thing. And thanks to Metrika, we do have a great dashboard also to follow that along.
Absolutely. And Freddy, as a follow-up to that question, what will change for Ethereum stakers after the Shapella hard fork?
Right. So like Torran alluded to, it enables withdrawals. And withdrawals really is a technical protocol terms, and it means two very different things. Number one is the accumulated protocol rewards. So all the rewards that come from the protocol, newly issued ETH, have been accumulated on the validator address since when people started staking. So that might be up to 2 years, roughly. So this pushing out of rewards from the validator to the withdrawal address, that's what's called partial withdrawals. And then the other part is the full withdrawals, which is exiting a validator, like Torran alluded to. If you want to quit staking or need to reshuffle your setup or want to come join Blockdaemon for staking, you can exit and then restake with a new validator. So those are the two types of withdrawals that are enabled with the fork. Now, it's also important to know that there's no gas needed for those withdrawals, neither for receiving your rewards nor for exiting your validator. So that's also great. But it also means that if you want to follow along, you cannot rely on regular transaction monitoring. If you're looking at transactions to explain changes in your balance on your withdrawal address, there will not be a transaction. You can obviously, there will be a record on the blockchain in the block header. That's where you can track all withdrawals and any amount that is transferred, basically. But it's not a regular transaction, which has the nice benefit of not needing any gas. What everyone is wondering is like, is that gonna mean that the percentage of staked ETH is gonna go up or down? And no one really knows. We're pretty certain that there's going to be a lot of reshuffling of validators just after Shapella. So there's likely going to be exit and activation queues as well. So people exit their validators and then maybe join a different operator or a liquid staking protocol or whatever. So there's probably going to be some queues forming up around that. But generally, we're optimistic, and like Torran said, particularly on the institutional space, a lot of entities were held back in staking because of the unsure, exiting timeline, and their, let's say, regulations would prevent them from engaging in staking. So with that obstacle now finally removed, we do think that it's generally we'd like to see an uptrend. So that's good news.
And starting with yourself, Torran, and then moving on to Freddy, how can users monitor withdrawal data on-chain, and what dashboards have Metrika and Blockdaemon developed to help support the community?
Yes, so as Freddy mentioned, it's not going to be a transaction on-chain that you can just monitor in the normal way. It's all included in block headers on the consensus layer and in the beacon chain. So at Metrika, we have been trying to collate this data into a dashboard, which I can share now. So this is our withdrawals overview dashboard. This one is focused specifically on withdrawals being brought in with Shapella. It starts with this tool at the top for validators to enter their public key, and it will either tell them what their withdrawal address is if they've set it, or tell them that they need to set it. Show some information about their stake and what they've, how much their withdrawal address has received recently, and how long it's been since their withdrawal address received a withdrawal. Then just some general network statistics. This is a relevant one. This is about the percentage of validators that have their credentials set, meaning that they will be able to receive rewards. We expect you've never been able to change your withdrawal credentials until Shapella. So this number is only from validators who set their withdrawal address when creating the validator. So it'll be interesting to see this increase. We visualize historically the activation and exit queues in these heat maps. So you can see that recently there was a large amount of activations, but no exits in the past time frame. And then a breakdown of this from why they're like joining the activation or exit queues. This is an interesting one, as Freddy mentioned earlier. When Ethereum was proof of work, all rewards were given to the miners on the execution layer, which meant that it was immediately able to be sold. But since the merge, all rewards have been locked into the consensus layer, and this means that the circulating supply of ETH on the execution layer has had no mechanism of increasing, and this will be the first time that it's possible. So this is why we see the circulating ETH supply just decrease, because we take into account the ETH that's been burnt from transaction fees and the ETH that's being deposited into the deposit contract for validators that are activating. So it'll be interesting to see this for the first time potentially increase and see an increase in the circulating supply. This chart, when credential changes are enabled, will show them and visualize them. And this is quite an interesting one. It shows the distribution of ETH on the consensus layer. This blue band here are all validators that have fully exited and are waiting for Shapella. So this blue band will all be withdrawn completely, assuming that they've set their withdrawal credentials. A nice simple chart just showing how the active stake and active validators changes. We'll track obviously the withdrawals and the size of the withdrawals that we're seeing, the number of withdrawals per block, and then also the largest withdrawers, which withdrawal addresses are receiving the most withdrawals. And so that's our withdrawal specific dashboard. We also have recently launched this network upgrade dashboard, which is currently tracking the next upgrade being Shapella. So we have a countdown. We see the test networks that it's been launched on. So we're just waiting for mainnet now. And it also tracks the readiness of all of the client teams and the versions that are ready for the mainnet upgrade. And we're calling the network to get an idea of what the percentage readiness is of nodes on the network ready for this upgrade. And then just it includes some more general statistics for the network, because it'll be interesting to monitor this to see if the health of the network maintains stability after the hard fork, making sure that enough validators and node operators have updated their clients so that they can continue on the correct fork and continue attesting and proposing blocks. Yeah.
Great stuff. And Freddy, would you like to touch on the Blockdaemon's specific dashboard to help support the Ethereum community as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to reiterate on Torran. So the network monitoring, the network update dashboard, that can be used for any fork, basically, also in the future, obviously. While the withdrawal dashboard is specific to, the Shanghai, Shapella, Capella, whatever you name it, upgrade, and it allows you to watch some of those things that we've discussed before. And one of the most frequently asked questions that we receive from our customers is actually, how long does it take to exit? And so I'm going to share my screen here and show the dashboard that is the Ethereum validator queue tracker, which we developed in conjunction with Metrika. And it allows you to track both the activation queue and the exit queue, both for the Girly testnet. If you're right now testing it, you can actually see that there's some people exiting the validators already on Girly in preparation for their processes, and obviously on Ethereum mainnet. Now there's no activation queue at this point, and we have here on the exit queue, because right now there is no exit queue, obviously, before Shapella. We also show the countdown, and this data refreshes every hour. So you have an almost real-time view on the queue length. And like I alluded to earlier, we do expect quite a lot of action in those queue. No one knows for sure how long it takes, or if people would update their credentials first, which would take a couple of days likely before they could exit or receive rewards. So there's a number of different variables in this. So this is the core data table that we have here right on top. Below, we have additional resources, those dashboards that Torran just showed us. We also have a Shapella FAQ for stakers, quite extensive. And here we also have a visualization of the process for activating a validator, receiving protocols, rewards, and exiting validators. And you see here the purple first one here, that's the exit queue. Depending on demand on activation, there's a similar process for the activation queue. And this is really what the table above helps you to quantify. The rest is pretty clear on how long it takes. So that's why we decided to build this community resource to make it easier for people to see how long it actually takes during the Shapella fork. And then there's some additional resources down here. Yeah, and we're looking forward to sharing this with the community, and hope to get this used a lot and provide a lot of value.
Absolutely. And for yourself, Torran, what is the process of receiving accumulated rewards from staking after the Shapella hard fork?
Yeah, so I think it's worth clarifying to start with that people often refer to it as a withdrawals queue, but it's less of a queue like the activation and exit queues. It's also referred to as a sweep. But to make clear, it's a looping process rather than a back and forth sweep. It starts at the validator with index 0 and assesses whether the validator is eligible to receive rewards. So it will check, does it have withdrawal credentials set? If it doesn't, it skips to the next validator. If it does, it then checks if the validator is fully exited. And if it is, it will then process a full withdrawal. If it isn't, it then checks if the validator's balance is in excess of 32 ETH. And if it is, it then processes a partial withdrawal of that balance in excess of 32 ETH. If it's under 32 ETH, then the validator is skipped. It's worth noting that there can only be 16 withdrawals per block, and the sweep can only check 16,000 or so validators per block. So either the sweep will find 16 eligible validators for withdrawals, include them, and move on to the next block, can then start from where the last one left off, or it won't find 16 and it will search through 16,000 validators. So this will happen at the start because the first 100,000 or so validators all have type 0 credentials, meaning that they're not set and not eligible for withdrawals. So the first few blocks will likely skip these. So if one wants to calculate the time that this sweep takes, it can be quite tricky because there's a lot of different factors that affect it. So, for example, like the total number of validators in the set, the number that have set their withdrawal address credentials, the number whose balance is in excess of 32 ETH, the number that have fully exited. So there's a lot of moving parts, and at the moment it looks like it'll probably take just over 2 days to complete a sweep, but again, as more validators activate or more change and set their withdrawal credentials, this could increase.
And Freddy, how does Blockdaemon enable withdrawals and facilitate auto compounding of rewards for users?
Right. So again, we'd have to differentiate between the partial withdrawals, which is about the receiving your rewards, and your, fully exiting a validator. With regards to receiving the rewards, luckily the protocol is taking care of all of that. So we don't need to do anything, and the user and customer doesn't have to do anything. They will just appear on the withdrawal address, like Torran alluded to. This sweep, there's no queue on that part. So it's just a sweep, which takes anywhere between like 2 and 4 to 5 days, depending on your position and the credentials, etc. So we don't need to do anything. For exiting a validator, we actually created a dedicated API endpoint in our staking API, which not only serves ETH, but also other networks. So, and using that endpoint, our customers can exit their validators and then enter the process of the queue, the protocol delay, and the sweep, which we cannot influence. So we're prepared for Shapella, and also we're happy to assist any customers that stake with us if they don't want to use the API, obviously. And the one thing that you alluded to with regards to auto compounding, so unfortunately, unlike other protocols, Ethereum does not natively support auto compounding, and that's due to the reason that you have this 32 ETH per validator limit, basically, and it's like a real proof of stake rather than delegated proof of stake. So those rewards will be pushed out to your withdrawal address, but you would have to initiate a restaking once you get 32 ETH together, and then you can restake them in launching a new validator. So it's a bit of a cumbersome process, and Blockdaemon will work towards making this easier and basically would offer let's call it a semi-automation of the compounding, because the user obviously still has to confirm the action and sign the transaction to create the new validator. What we also do offer already is the liquid staking protocol, like you alluded to, that we developed with B2C2, for example, as a big liquidity provider. And Amdex, for example, I did a podcast, I think, with you with them. So that allows you actually to benefit from auto compounding straight away. Also offers some benefits, obviously, with regards to exiting quickly and having a receipt token that you can, keep in your books or do other things with it. So that's a whole nother story. That's not directly related with Shapella, but that liquid staking protocols, also the other retail-focused liquid staking protocols like Lido, Rocket Pool, etc., they basically have the auto compounding built into their system. So that's independent from Shapella, though.
And as we wrap up here today, Torran, give us an idea of the unbonding time for staked ETH after the Shapella hard fork, and how will this unbonding time impact stakers?
Yeah, so the unbonding time, again, depends on a few different things. If once a validator exits, they are then allocated an exit epoch and a withdrawable epoch, and that is at least 4 epochs from the current one, but could be significantly more if the exit queue is long, which is why it's important to monitor in things in resources like the website that Blockdaemon and Metrika are providing. The withdrawable epoch will then be a further 256 epochs after that exit epoch. So the time can be quite variable depending on how much demand there is for exiting. And then once it's reached its withdrawable epoch, it then still has to wait for that withdrawal sweep to reach it. So it depends where the sweep is in its loop, how soon that will be. So it can be quite hard to estimate. The validators should be aware that whilst they're waiting to exit and they're in this queue, they need to continue to do their duties. It's only once they've reached their exit epoch that they can stop. Yeah, they need to bear that in mind. And yeah, it'll be in their best interest to just watch the exit queue before they voluntarily exit to get an idea of what to expect and how long they can wait until they're able to cease their duties and receive their stake.
And just to add to that, maybe, so like Torran said, there's many variables at play, so that makes it a little bit hard. There's like not one time that you can specify in amount of days or something. But generally, if there's no exit queue, you can be reasonably sure to receive, the unbonding within a week. That's sort of, the kind of guidance that we give. Like I said, probably with the Shapella fork, there will be some queuing, so it might take, a couple of days or even weeks more than that. But so that's where that exit and activation queue monitoring comes in. That's the most variable part of this process, basically. And that's why we also did the math, because there's also, depending on the amount of validators, the capacity of the exit queue increases or decreases. So we actually did the math and give the, a human readable timeline for the queue, which again is only one step of the exit process. But it should, significantly help getting an estimate, because once you're out of the exit queue, it's really just, anywhere between, like, say, 2 and 5 days to add on top of that.
Great stuff, Freddy. Thank you for the additional context there. And thank you both for your valuable and interesting insights today. For everyone listening, I encourage you to visit the resources explained by Freddy and Torran, which will be listed in the show notes today. And for anything else, please subscribe to the podcast and follow us on Twitter at Blockdaemon HQ for all updates around Shapella and all things blockchain and Web3. But until next time, thank you, Freddy. Thank you, Torran. And hope you have a great day. Thanks.